Welcome to Revitalize and Replant. My name is Thom Rainer. I am joined by Kevin Ezell, the president of the North American Mission Board. This three-part series, this is part 2 of this three-part series, has been a lot of fun. We have been talking about 5 ways in a COVID world. We don't even call it post-COVID anymore, but we're talking about a COVID world, and we have 3 5-way series. So we dealt with the issues in the first part. Today, we're going to be dealing with unity, church unity, and then in the next episode on this, we're going to be dealing with evangelistic apathy. Kevin, timely stuff, I would think.
Oh, absolutely. Everyone is dealing with this, which, there's a benefit in that because everyone's dealing with it. And so you can learn from everyone, but it's, it didn't seem to be, obviously, everybody thought it was going to be temporary, but you're right in naming it the COVID world because it will end, but we don't see the end anytime soon.
I wrote a book late fall of 2020 called The Post-Quarantine Church. And the editors said, I don't think we need to call it post-COVID because we really don't know where COVID is going. But as churches come out of the quarantine, let's talk about that. That was prescient. I had no idea that they knew so much. But then I found out they had no idea. They really knew so much.
Just guess.
But it was good. It was a good thought. By the way, this podcast, Revitalize and Replant, is sponsored fully by the North American Mission Board. North American Mission Board is all about church planting, church replanting, disaster relief, evangelism. The list could go on and on. But they're really all about missions in North America, and they are doing a great job under the leadership of Kevin Ezell. Connect with them at churchreplanters.com or connect with them at namb.net, NAMB.net. Okay, church unity. Any stories, any recent conversations on unity problems in churches, Kevin, that you're hearing about?
Oh, man, constantly. And it didn't seem like the pastor's in any type of a win situation. He's either too much in favor of masks or doesn't care about people and not masking, or he mentioned being vaccinated and someone took offense to that, or it just seems to be constant. And
you mentioned that a pastor actually got fired for taking a middle-of-the-road position.
Yeah, he simply said, consult your doctor and do what's best for you. And the fact he even brought it up, and they said he was being political, and it's just it's amazing when people don't even want to talk about it. You've got to talk about the elephant in the room, so to speak. So,
well, that's kind of the first point. I mean, that's really good, Kevin.
I was trying to flow in there. I was trying to tee it up,
You just segue into there. So acknowledge the elephant in the room. I guess that's going to be different for different churches. Jess, my pastor in Spring Hill, Tennessee, he simply acknowledged we have a lot of differences of opinion here. And he said, we have differences of opinion in this church. And he said, what we're going to do is we're going to be focused on the gospel, and that's where we're going to keep the unity on these other issues. It went well for him that he said that. But there's some pastors that can't even make that statement.
No. Now, I don't know some who've tried to say they have a mass service and they have a Wild Wild West service, without the mask. But even trying to throw humor in people, it's such a sensitive topic, maybe it's time for you to go back and revise your Eating the Elephant book. You could update it and add some of these to it.
Wow. You know what? I'm kind of honored that you remembered a book that I wrote in 1994, Kevin.
Hey, I've been a fan for a long time,
You were a teenager in 1994. My goodness.
I don't know exactly, but thanks.
I'm impressed, humbled, and honored, all three at the same time. So one of the things we're recommending, if the church situation is right, is just acknowledge the elephant in the room that, hey, we know that there are differences of opinion. But again, like the warning and caveats that you see on a lot of things, don't do so if you think you're at risk by saying anything. Because
one thing I would suggest to a pastor when he does acknowledge it is whoever his leadership base is, if it's elders or deacons or whoever is, and to have some discussions with them and get a sense of where they are. And if you do make any blanket statements, have on behalf of, you're doing it with them and maybe not going out on a limb all by yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's more, you're not sticking your neck out there all by yourself. But you're speaking as a group more so, trying to guide the church through it. And I think where pastors get in trouble is, one, they don't acknowledge the elephant in the room, but they go it alone, trying to be the Lone Ranger, so to speak. And it can get really lonely out there when you do that. And you just got to be careful. I've never seen so many pastoral transitions, and because they're not acknowledging it, I see a lot of pastors preparing for retirement out of this just because they don't know how to navigate it.
Yeah. Wow. That advice about speaking on behalf of a leadership team, deacons, elders, staff, whatever the case may be, that's really, really good. I think that's almost a point in itself. The next point is kind of obvious, but it has to be stated. Stay off social media debates about these COVID issues and encourage members to do so as well. You cannot tell members, but stay off of these debates. Man, they're all over the place.
Yeah. I think, some have just become addicted to it. And even if it's for more entertainment value, some people like to watch some fights. It's like in high school when you're on your way to lunch and you see some guys fighting, you just can't hardly not stop. You want to see, and I can't stop watching that. And I think sometimes people do it for entertainment value, but it's just not healthy, and it doesn't create a sense of health at all. People have taken what could be used for good and turned it for, giving them. And you got people who don't need to be speaking into something, who have a megaphone and a voice now. It's amazing how many people are experts on things that they've never done. And it
usually takes about an hour on social media to be that expert.
Yeah, I'm thinking, why do you think we want to know what you think? I just don't get it. But that mute button on Twitter, and I'm sure the other social media have just you narrow who you follow, and it really does. I know pastors who have done a month fast on social media, and it's completely one of the largest churches in Arkansas. I mean, he's totally off it because it went so well during that 30-day period. His life was so much better that he just never got back on it, and he said it's fantastic.
Well, I also know of a pastor who tweeted in the middle of hhis fast that he was fasting on social media. He did. Maybe it was preset, so we'll give him the benefit of the doubt, but it didn't show up very well. So you're fasting from social media, you say. Can I retweet that?
Yeah. Well, that's what I always got a kick out of our student ministry once. That this student ministry pretty well. He was going to charge everybody $20 a person for a fast retreat, and they said the money is for lodging and food supplies. Like somebody cut and pasted there, So.
Yes. This whole social media, gosh, we've talked about that ad infinitum, and right. I do like the silent, mute, all kinds of options on social media. Focus on those things that move the church outwardly. And, we're going to talk in our third episode of this 3-part series, 5 Ways to Revitalize in a COVID World. We're going to talk about evangelistic apathy. And Kevin, a church that is really focused on getting the gospel to the community, to the nation, and the world has a lot of trouble being disunified.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And, if it's a time where your church has been blessed with abundance during this time, which some have financially because they've shut down so many other things, maybe it's a time for you to use that money to bless some other churches. And there's a Peavine church in Chattanooga called me. They had $100,000 they want to invest and meet needs of different ones. They said, can you just send me a list of needs? And so we sent them a list of needs, and they're going to go personally deliver, and just it's churches, it's people, it's such a blessing for a church to think outwardly and look outwardly. And you're right. It keeps them unified and focused on the mission.
Yeah, and there is a reality, whether you're looking at the Southern Baptist Convention or you're looking at other denominations or non-denominations, particularly in North America, there is a reality. This evangelistic apathy that we'll be talking about in the next episode is real and present in the number of people who are being reached. And I have to believe some of it is due to COVID because we don't know how to reach. We can't do the things we've always done it. But some of it is just due to the fact that we've gotten distracted and we've forgotten the main thing during all of this.
No, you're absolutely right. And I think if you do that, you're missing an incredible opportunity of a wave of a harvest, evangelistic harvest, because I've just seen that people are more open now than ever. And I don't know about you. I don't know how much travel you're doing on planes and stuff like that, but people are much more open to talk about things. I'm amazed. We don't even take off, and the guy next to you is telling everything, going into detail about his family or challenges they're having, and they don't even know the guy. So people just seem to be much more open to talking, and I think now open to the gospel more than ever.
You mentioned, I think when we were off air, maybe it was a previous episode, but you mentioned that I think it was in a previous episode that a church had an evangelistic harvest. I think you may have said Houston or somewhere like that started with a prayer ministry.
Yeah, Nathan Leno in Houston. Yeah. Yeah, and actually that church also, they have a gang ministry where they started a basketball league for gangs. He bought the different gangs, different uniforms, and said, look, let's just take it out on the basketball court. And he's reaching these gang members in Houston. It's incredible. And they show up, and, I mean, it's amazing. But it all started with a prayer ministry, and they just had, it's like 504 people in 1 year period. They've never had anything near that.
Wow. Do you have any details on these games between different gangs? I mean, is there like a lot of technical fouls or?
Yeah. I told him he should video that, man. Like the gang challenge or something. That'd be pretty interesting to see. But he said actually it works out really well. It's not what you think.
Wow. So I guess maybe if Baptists are playing basketball each other, you're more likely to have a fight than if gangs are playing each other.
Yeah. I don't like to talk about basketball and churches. And when I pastored First Baptist Marion, Illinois, we were playing Second Baptist Marion, Illinois, and I got thrown out of a game, and I was pastor of First Baptist.
Were you commenting from the stands?
No, it was I threw a ball and hit a guy in a very sensitive area, and I think the referee thought I did it on purpose. The worst part of getting thrown out of a church league basketball game on a Tuesday night is going back home and your wife won't know why you're home in 30 minutes, and you have to explain it to her, so.
Oh, I guess. And then there's always Wednesday night with the church.
Oh, yeah.
Explain things as well.
It was pretty embarrassing. So, but you see, I've forgotten it, gone on, don't ever think about it again,
I know it had no impact upon your memory or who you are today.
No.
The insecure person that you are. This whole thing about a prayer ministry, it's big, and I think churches need to understand that this human-centered activity is ultimately not going to work. It has to be God-centric. It has to be gospel-centric. Absolutely. So start with prayer.
And there's so many things, so many simple ways they can do it. Thom, I mean, we talk about we focus a lot on church planning here at the North American Mission. But we have a prayforplanners.com. You can connect with a planner. You can connect with a person trying to revitalize a church. Pray specifically for your. I mean,
I want to put that in the show notes.
There's just endless amounts of ways that my mom is right at 80. She can be at home and invest in a prayer. You can pray for people literally all over the world now. And I mean, you can get on. We have people get on Google Maps and prayer walk cities, on their computer, and you don't have to leave your home to engage. Every person can be involved in a prayer.
Wow,
strategy.
So you're walking the street Googleized.
Oh yeah, yeah. We actually at the SBC at convention in June had set up a thing where you put in an address and you actually could walk this big huge screen. You could walk around whatever city in the world you wanted to and pray for different parts of the city. And so, it's amazing what you can do now right from your home, right from your iPad, your laptop, and it does so much for you. When you're praying specifically for a planner, like say, if you don't have one, pray for Jemai, Philip and Jemai. She's the wife of a planter in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Due to COVID, she had some unique things happen, had both her legs amputated. Ooh. And so there, you can imagine just transitioning to a life like that. And there are people going through so many things, but to pray for a couple like that means the world to them, but also it will change your perspective, and you have a greater appreciation for all that God's doing, and bring joy to your life like never before. So,
related to that, during this time where there's so much disunity, part of the reason there's disunity is because there's a sense of hopelessness, and that sense of hopelessness manifests itself in frustration and fighting and disagreeing. A lot of pastors are doing entire sermon series on hope. They're doing you go through the 4 chapters of the book of Philippians and see the hope that is there, or go through the clear gospel that is all throughout the book of Romans, or wherever, messages of hope. I think some people are forgetting that the God of hope is still alive and well, even in the midst of COVID.
Oh, absolutely. And Philippians. I know I love Colossians. Especially like the 3rd chapter where it says, "Clothe yourself with." I mean, we have such a simple sense of hope from Christ, but also it tells us that we are to clothe ourselves with certain things. And I just pray through times like this we don't get lazy. Even when you're talking about prayer, a pastor can promote prayer, but often not do it himself. And sometimes I think we're advertising things that we don't actually use. And
so well said.
We have to take care of the basics and understand, again, we do have that sense of hope.
So let's just let our audience know what is going on. If you did not listen to the previous podcast, we dealt with some basic issues, 5 issues in this COVID world. But this entire series, we're doing 5 things 3 times in a row. So the entire series is 5 ways to revitalize in a COVID world. So we dealt with the issues in the first one. This one, we're dealing with church unity. And when you come back to the episode where it's Kevin and me, understand that Mark Clifton is also co-host on half of these as well. But when it comes back with Kevin and me, we're going to do a 3rd part on this. And we're going to be talking about evangelistic apathy. Kevin, one of the ways that we measure evangelism, and we'll get more into this in the next podcast that you and I are together, is we used to look at membership and baptisms, a ratio there, and now we're looking at more of attendance in baptism, and we're seeing fewer and fewer people reached for the number of people who are actually gathering for worship, and you can see it in the absolute numbers. Southern Baptist Convention was a denomination that was headed toward 500,000 in baptisms at one time, but is decidedly has struggled there. But it's not just SBC; it's all over the place. And one thing that the North American Mission Board has always done under your leadership, it has kept evangelism at the forefront. It has always said, "Hey, you can't make churches evangelistic from your denominational perch. This is a congregational polity, but the influence that you've had, I would hesitate to wonder where things would be without the type of influence that you have through North American Mission Board on churches."
Well, you're kind, but it's nowhere near where we want it to be. And the end of the day, if a pastor is not on the heart of a pastor, it just doesn't happen. And I know we're going to talk about that in the next episode, but the pastor has to own it. It starts with prayer, starts with all these things we just listed in this episode. But if a pastor doesn't model it, it just doesn't happen.
Well, I'll close with this. A well-known pastor told me, or I don't think he told me, I think I heard it when he was preaching one time. And this was in the days when public response to public invitation was still very common, walking the aisle, if you will, kind of the Billy Sunday sawdust trail, and people were walking the aisle. And he said, I want to tell you, I've never seen a church that is disunified where people are walking the aisle every Sunday. Well, the same principle. I've never seen a church that's disunified where they are reaching people with the gospel on a regular basis. And that's going to be the subject of our next podcast. So I hope that you'll come back for that. And when I say next, the next with Kevin and me, when we come back and we talk about evangelistic apathy. We always thank you for being a part of this podcast, Revitalize and Replant. Some of you are listening on your favorite app. Give us a rating, a review. Let us know that you're there. Please just chime in right there. Some of you have begun, a number of you have begun to watch us on YouTube. For that, we apologize, but we're still here and you can see us. Like us on YouTube. Let us know that you're there. And if you don't like Kevin, then like me. If you don't like me, then like Kevin. Just pick one up and put a like there. Thank you for being with us on Revitalize and Replant. We'll see you in the next episode with Kevin, where we talk about evangelistic apathy as we continue to help churches get healthier together.